have to pick the pieces up one too many times, till you showed what it's like. Gave the kind of love I've missed all my life. So lock me up and throw away the key, 'cause baby, that's something that I'll never need. Oh, I'm trying.
Well, Sean, like I said, from meeting you immediately, I could tell that one of the things about you that's really refreshing to me is, I'm not going to lie, it seems like the average person I've been interviewing lately is probably in their mid-50s, early 60s. So I've started to hit this kind of nice run with, the other day I interviewed the great Tamara Weber, and now yourself, all I guess you'd describe as part of a true emboldened young generation. Thank you for being on my show.
Thank you so much, and I'm spilling the secret here. I'm actually 54, but it's just a really good skincare routine that I can't share with anybody else. So,
Sean, you be careful. Jokes like that now with Jim Carrey and everything that's happening in the mainstream media. You know, who knows? Maybe I'm speaking to your clone, is what you're saying. I think.
No, I'm really grateful to be on here, and I'm lucky to have worked with a lot of people that have been seasoned in the industry, and there's so much to learn from everyone out there. So I'm just grateful for all the experiences I've been able to have.
Well, that's truly admirable, because you're someone that you're just a rare unicorn that I've been interviewing, fortunately a lot, because there aren't that many of them. But the singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, man, oh man, that, like in the sports world, would be like a coveted quarterback or a five-tool baseball player. It's one of those things that is just an astonishing thing for people to appreciate in a world where the average person no longer plays a single instrument or knows how to utter a tune. Where did that come from in your life? Where did that ambition, that desire to be kind of a lone wolf in some regards whenever you choose to be, where did that start?
Thank you. To be honest, I think it's always just stemmed from loving what I do so much and wanting to just keep diving into all the different areas and facets of this crazy industry. But yeah, I started with piano at the age of 5. I was in choir for 10 years as a child, and then just slowly over time, just building up new instruments and learning and wanting to keep growing as a musician. And then probably when I was around 11, I was starting to write songs, and then I just wanted to kind of dive deeper into like making my own music. And I was lucky enough to kind of have worked with some different people and producers as kind of a child to realize these like kid songs. But I was even at that age wanting to get something out that I wasn't hearing from someone else working on my own music. So that kind of put me down the path of learning production and going down that whole road. And then that led to Berklee, going to there for the music production degree, and at the same time working with all these incredible people, Debbie Gibson, Joey McIntyre, and everyone continued. But yeah, I think the answer is it's just always stemmed from loving music.
And from it, the surrealism of being an influencer to the types of pop and rock acts that happened 30 years ago, which some would argue makes you a bit of a musical sorcerer. Because usually that's not how it works, right? Usually the younger generation learns from the older generation and then kind of creates their own footprint. What's fascinating about you is you're not only creating your own identity, but you're collaborating, like you said. I mean, Debbie Gibson, New Kids on the Block, Newedition, these are names that mean a lot to millions of people who love their music. So that must feel really special to know that you're not just learning, but you're giving these artists something that make them say, it doesn't matter how old this human being is, this is the collaborator I need.
It does, for sure. And they say that all the time, that they learn, just as much from me as I tell them I do about them. But it just makes me so grateful to even be able to be in the same kind of space to learn from these people that have had so much experience in what I want to do for the rest of my life, hopefully. But yeah, it's age kind of goes out the window, I feel like, when the people I've worked with and all of these sessions kind of come together. It kind of just is thrown by the wayside, and we just communicate through music and melody and rhythm. And I don't think there's really an age requirement when you're talking in that language. I think, you just communicate through something, different as a musician.
And you find in that difference between musicians as you get older, I'm sure you just learn new things. I mean, you never really have a chance to stop learning if you're going to be doing restaurants, pubs, festivals, and concerts, and meeting other musicians who will approach you and say, "Hey, Sean, big fan of your music. By the way, look what I do with my harpsichord," or something surreal like that. Next thing you know, you're like, that's the kind of sound I want to put on my next creation.
Oh, 100%. Oh my gosh, I'm so inspired, especially like on just social media and like Instagram and just scrolling through every day, just seeing like every type of new instrument out there and whatever, all these crazy talented musicians now. I used to busk. There's I don't know how familiar you are with Vancouver, but we got this thing, Granville Island. It's kind of this nice little like tourist area with a bunch of shops, but it's really famous for like a lot of having like busking musicians. So I used to perform there when I was younger for a couple years, and man, the instruments and the crazy different ways that people were playing their music, it was so inspiring to be around, and it kind of taught me a lot from a young age to keep seeking new ideas and to never kind of be stagnant in what you're creating.
Do you rely on your experiences in the world these days to help mold that from the standpoint of like, we know the world is in peril in the sense that the examples and the events that are happening are just really tough for people to digest. In your new album, Better, you've brought in a message of positivity that comes across as not lip service and virtue signaling, but you genuinely feel in life there's a reason to stay positive amidst all the doom and gloom. Where did that come from? Is that something your parents taught you, or is that something you at a young age, because you were playing music, you kind of channeled that and understood the zeitgeist of music around you?
Oh, thank you so much. First of all, yeah, I'm lucky to. I feel like from a young age, in a weird way, I've experienced a lot of, I would say, loss. I don't know. I've my grandmothers were both diagnosed with cancer, and just throughout the kind of my childhood years, there's been a lot of loss in my life. So I take that as a positive thing in my life, to just be grateful for every second you have living on this planet, and to just try and give back in some way, some shape or form every day. So I think by putting kind of music out there that makes people feel good and when they listen to it, I think that's some sort of way I can kind of make the world a better place, just in a super small way. But I mean, in terms of music as a whole, I just saw this video of, I think, somewhere in the Middle East, but there's this like building on fire, and this bomb was dropping, and these guys were just playing music, just looking at the crazy sight on the view where they were, and it just shows how powerful music is, and everyone was kind of in this melancholic state of being in this music, but kind of looking at this scenery, and it was sad and powerful, but yet so beautiful how everyone was kind of coming together around that piece of music that person was playing.
Showing you that music really transcends what's happening in front of our very eyes. It's funny, it reminds me of that scene from the Titanic where all the orchestral musicians are playing even though they know they're going down with the ship. Even in the inevitability of the things around us, music provides the kind of impulses and vibrations. That's what I'm learning from speaking with younger musicians more than ever, whether it was the great Tamara Weber or the great Irish Millie out of Peterborough, Ontario. There's a new generation of musicians, it seems, who are well wise beyond their years. Do you ever get that feeling, Sean, that you're like an old soul kind of trapped in a young body because time isn't going fast enough for you to become old enough, like Leonard Cohen or a Bob Dylan? The gravitas, right?
Oh my gosh, I get told that a lot about me. I appreciate all that older style of music. So maybe I am, I don't know, reincarnated in some way. But Joey McIntyre, he likes to call me BC Soul from British Columbia. So yeah, that's my nickname for him.
To have the esteem of stars from the past who've gone through the highs and lows, definitely the lows of a horrific music industry. Is that also kind of a bonus that not only are you learning something as a musician, but you've got some incredible mentorship and wisdom around you where you can sit down with Debbie Gibson and tell her, what was it like when you were like 17 years old and on every magazine cover in North America? I'm sure she had
100%.
stories, you know?
Oh, definitely. And I've been so lucky to just have time to spend with all of them, just asking them and picking their brain about, everything I possibly can. And they're so gracious with their, answers, and I feel like they want to give back as well. And I mean, just from an outside view, it's interesting. I've noticed working with a lot of, younger people in this industry and seeing, I would say, especially in let's say like a live show where maybe something will go wrong in the show, and watching like these people like Debbie and Joey kind of react in the moment and not being fazed by anything that could possibly happen, because everything that could happen has happened to them in the past, so they're just ready for any scenario. It's really inspiring, and it's something I kind of want to take with me as I grow my music career, to just go with the flow, just with everything.
It's interesting. New Kids on the Block was so, I'll use it delicately, they were trashed in some cases. Horrifically unfair punditry at play from people who were saying they're not going to last, they're horrible, they're just a teeny bopper boy band, so to speak. I'm using really delicate terms. I'm sure they said a lot worse. But yet, there were about 5 or 6 tunes that were played every single day on the radio for the better part of half a decade. I think to myself, if they're really so horrible, why were they able to create such memorable tunes? And I think that really is their legacy, especially for a lot of the, younger generation of women who grew up when I was younger. And for them, those were memorable songs. They gave them a sense of joy and reverie. I mean, isn't that what a musician, what an entertainer is aspiring to do at the end of the day?
I agree. I think a lot of it probably stemmed from, I feel like New Edition probably would have experienced this definitely somehow, some way too, but I think when you become really popular really fast and it's commercialized, I think, it's just an easy thing to pick on. But when you look back at their discography and what they were able to accomplish in such a short amount of time, it's hard not to be inspired, no matter what the type of music is, because it's all subjective at the end of the day. Somebody could love their albums and everything, and someone could, not appreciate as much, but it doesn't take away from all the accolades and everything that they've achieved.
And the incredibly, profoundly sad reminder that more money equals more problems, right? The fact is that in music, when you really hit it big the way some of your collaborators have, it's hard to understand your place in the world once you become that famous, especially when the way people perceive you is no longer based on your talent, but just on the fact that you happen to be a very successful rich guy they know. Are you ever worried about that as you become more successful and have been more successful, that you might experience that from people who come to you and say, hey, Sean, I think you're great now that you've proven yourself, whereas you were probably asking yourself when you were much younger, where were you then?
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that to some degree right now, but I'm so focused on kind of my own output, and the only really voice that matters to me is my own. And as long as I'm making music and I'm putting stuff out there in the world that I'm proud of, then that's all I'm really focused on at the end of the day, just making sure that I am in control of what I'm putting out there and that I love what I'm making. And so far I've been successful in that regard, so yeah.
Absolutely. Is it a preference to be solo, to stay solo, or I'm sure you've come across some offers of other artists who've come to you and said, Sean, you are the perfect frontman, or you're the perfect guitarist we need, or you're the perfect producer we need. What's your preference these days when it comes to creating music?
Definitely, I love collaboration. I'm a huge fan of it. I think for my own music, I have a process of just kind of having it be so internal from kind of every point of the stage of the song, from songwriting, and then I'll bring it into, my computer for the production, and it's all kind of in-house, the way I do it for my own music. But then it's nice to kind of have this other side of, being a songwriter and producer for other people, and that's just inherently had it built-in collaboration from the start. And then, you get to bring in these amazing musicians and meet all these people from around the world. I know, like, for Debbie Gibson's album, we had a orchestra, like, all the way out and in Asia, I think in Russia or something, do the kind of the parts and everything for one of her songs. So just experiences like that, just to where you get to meet and learn from all these, you know, people, it helps a lot. And then I'm fortunate to take kind of what I've learned from all these other people and kind of bring it back and harness that into my creations.
Well, speaking of influences that we talked about earlier, and the fact that you're doing this amazing thing where you're working with people who, in some cases, were around before you were, and are kind of contrasting their experience of life at that point relative to yours. Do you remember going back who it was, what kind of artist or who it was that specifically influenced you, that made you started feeling like, after listening to that, that is my destiny. That is what I would like to not necessarily mold myself after, but would like to quietly evolve into, so people can appreciate the merits of why I'm influenced by this person?
I love that question. I think probably the person at the top of my list is, I would say, David Foster. Just in terms of his whole career and the way he makes his music feel like a journey. You kind of turn one of his songs on and you kind of need a break after you listen to it because of how powerful each one of his songs are. Absolutely. And ever since I was, you know, a little kid, I kind of felt that from his music. And yeah, he's always been at the top of the list for me. So inspiring. And then in terms of other kind of singer musicians, I mean, Michael Bublé is up there for sure. Justin Timberlake, John Mayer, Ed Sheeran. Yeah, bunch of people.
It's interesting too, because David Foster, the legendary David Foster, is one that his arrangements, his compositions, they've stood the test of time and generationally. When you're writing your music, are you thinking first as someone who's a composer and arranger, where you have this macro perspective of what you think the music will be, or you want to just pick up an instrument and from the origins of simplicity in a melody or a riff suddenly develops your whole vision?
I think it starts as simple as I can possibly start it. Let's say, you know, like just picking up an acoustic guitar or stemming from a piano or something, and whenever I'm writing by myself or with other people, I'll try to keep it as acoustic as possible up until we have to start building it out. If we even have to, maybe it's just a guitar song or a piano song with a vocal. But I think some of the most powerful songs kind of just stem from having it be as internal and raw as possible, and then from there kind of building it out and seeing what the production could sound like. And I think a lot of like a composer in that way, like reacting towards, you know, the lyrics or the emotion of what the person is saying. I'll try to add and tailor sounds that are, you know, fit for that specific song and kind of take people on a journey that way.
And of course, you're no stranger to videos and the publicity that comes with your music. How much input do you have in that? Is that something you want to control, or do you rely on other people to say, hey, Sean, we've listened to your music, it's inspired us, and this is what we think it should be represented on in social media?
I have an idea of kind of what I want, but then I've been so lucky to have worked with this incredible guy, John Asher, on these last couple of videos I've done. And man, the same way I'm crazy passionate about music, he's just so into videos and directing, and it's just like really inspiring to just be on a call with him and not talk and just have him rant about, you know, every possible idea and everything he's thinking in his brain, because from that stems so many cool ideas that I would have never thought of myself. So I'm all about collaboration and kind of letting people, you know, take the reins with what they're feeling from the music that I created.
Now, you're occupying a space that I feel, you know, people like to talk about pop or pop rock or soft rock, or, I mean, these days, Sean, I've heard it all. I've interviewed people who've influenced yacht rock and fiddle rock, and porch rock is my favorite, where, you know, those are for people who just love sitting down like a Braden Finley and enjoying the folk moment.
I love it. That's great.
That to me is something that is a very enjoyable experience, more intimate and interactive than it is in front of a gigantic audience. What's your preference though? Because it seems to me like some performers love the open air and let's go in front of, say, 10,000 people versus I just want to be in a nice little intimate environment with, say, 50 to 70 people, all appreciating and soaking up the moment. What's your preference as a musician?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been lucky to kind of have had the third party and kind of first party experience, I guess, in both settings. I was just with New Edition for their new tour that they're currently on with Boyz II Men and Tony Braxton. It's a huge arena tour with a crazy setup and, like a 5-piece band, and everyone's at the top of their game, and crazy light shows are going on, and it's so cool to look out into the crowd and see like 20 to 30,000 people like living in the moment, and then you kind of zero in on specific people and you see like two couples just like hugging or kissing during a song, and you're just like kind of in awe of how that's multiplied in an arena setting. So that's really cool. But I think personal preference, I think there's just really something special about how intimate of a setting you could go where it's just completely raw and you're just sharing kind of the human connection at its truest form. Just acoustic performances, I think there's just something really special there. And whenever I kind of get the chance to have a stripped down moment, I always jump at the opportunity because, yeah, I think that's a really powerful form of connection.
I bet, and also being on stage with the Tony Braxtons and the Boyz II Men of the worlds, the iconic standards of everything from hip hop to R&B. I mean, again, this is where your multi-instrumentalist ways must be a godsend, because you're not just absorbing their music with being impressed of what it was back in the day. You're seeing how it's being constructed. And that's got to be unbelievable, valuable experience for you when you go back into your own home studio, now armed with everything that you've seen. You've been in the kitchen. You know how the award-winning chili is made.
Definitely, yeah. I kind of like equate it to like, like the site like Masterclass, where you get to learn from like the top people at their game on everything. It's just like if you wanted to learn like about layering vocal harmonies, I don't know who's better to ask and pick their brain than Boyz II Men. It's just crazy when you see them do their thing. So it's like that with every group I've worked with. I'm just so lucky. And genres aside, you take all that in and then you are kind of able to meld around any situation that you kind of find yourself in. So yeah.
And a great blessing to be around, no doubt. You're participating in what was already a part of history, but is now a part of an imminent reality where, like you said, people need to feel good. They need to feel positive. They need to stop going around carrying the weight of all that negativity, which is like a creeping malaise. I'm sure you yourself, because you are a human being, you know that without that mental health going the way it should, ideas aren't made, work isn't fulfilled, and politics gets deeper and darker. So to hear you crooning, literally in some cases, because that's what you're doing, suggesting these positive messages, that must make a big difference for the people around you in your life, especially the ones you know who are going through tough times.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a great way to put it. I think you have to take care of yourself, and from that comes great art that you can share with everybody else. I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of times too where I've been feeling down or whatever, and a certain song will pick me right back up. So it's a powerful thing to be able to create something that has that capability to bring a different emotion or lift somebody back up.
Nostalgia is such a big thing right now. Is there any particular song that comes on the radio, or if you're streaming something or on YouTube, that kind of gets you more than others whenever you hear it? Anything recently you can think of that you've been hearing going, man, oh man, what a great piece of music?
I'm trying to think of some things. Let's say I've been listening to a lot of Fleetwood Mac Rumors lately. That's been, holy, talk about an album. Oh my gosh, that needs no introduction.
Like a holy tome that you carry with you, and whenever you hear it, it just opens up a world for you when you consider what they did.
Crazy, and so ahead of its time too in terms of the sound. It still holds up today, and it's a really great piece of art. And the Michael Jackson movies coming out, I've been kind of revisiting a lot of that with just kind of appreciating, now that I'm older, like the production with Quincy Jones and everything, and just dissecting it a little bit more. And man, those songs are just undeniably amazing.
I mean, Off the Wall doesn't get talked about enough. You know, we always talk about the big albums that come out, but what about that one or two releases before the big one that sometimes ends up, you know, I talked about it the other day with, I think, the great Ken Whiteley, the folk legend, about Led Zeppelin 3, how I think it's so much better than Led Zeppelin 4.
Okay.
How Pink Floyd's Animals is more enthralling for me than The Wall, and
Yeah.
how Rumors ended up doing something for that band that, again, going back to our discussion about musical genres and fusion, this was a blues band. This was all about, you know, good old classic blues with the incredibly talented Peter Green. And suddenly they come back with Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, and you've got songs that to this day resonate with anyone in any kind of environment. When it comes on, you just stop to listen, and that music just fills you with such a visceral response, I find.
Definitely, yeah. It's cool when I think there's like two kind of practices about somebody wanting to reserve their releases until they feel like they've kind of developed their sound, whatever that might feel or feel like to them inside. But there's something really cool about going back to these already crazy established bands and hearing the build up to that big moment. And everyone kind of has that album, in these past decades and everything. But yeah, it's always fun to hear the progress, and it's a cool learning lesson that you're never really stop learning about music, and it's kind of an evolving thing.
And it's interesting when you look at the mercurial artists, the ones that really accomplish so much, of course, Michael Jackson being right at the top, and then also seeing the slow kind of creative descent, because his later albums were very ambitious, but they lacked the humility, which I find a lot of musicians lose as they start suffering with their mortality and realizing they're not going to be young forever. For yourself, who hasn't even caught that moment yet, you know, somebody were to say, is Sean Thomas in his prime? No way. You know, Sean Thomas has way to go before he reaches his prime. What are you hoping to achieve? So when you do reach that stage that a musician does, where he has this huge discography and, you know, has been involved with 200 different artists and songs, what do you hope to achieve? What do you hope that people ultimately remember you by as a musician?
That's such a great question, and I think something I want to keep thinking about as I age and go through this music industry. But I mean, right now it's to have the goal of doing this for as long as I can, and as long as I am able to have this output of, you know, creative expression through music, I just want to make that last as long as possible and touch as many people as I can as possible with the music. And yeah, I think for being on the collaboration side, I think just always learning and being a good collaborator and tailoring, you know, my expertise towards that person. I think I want to look back on someday and kind of feel like I've helped other people achieve their vision and their sound of what they want to make. So I think that's what I would say right now. It's probably gonna, you know, keep changing throughout my life, but that's where I'm at.
I think that we can both agree that one musician that will be extremely proud and honored of how you described it was Frank Zappa. That's a very Zappa-esque thing to say, because sometimes I think that, again, when you wear all the hats and you know how to create music from the ingredients in the kitchen to the great dinner we're going to have later, I think everybody wants to be part of that or involved somehow. But there's a difference between people coming to you because you have all these different skills and talents, and then coming to you because your vision is so meaningful to them. And I think that because you're touring all over the world like you are, you're seeing a lot of different visions. And that's kind of helping you agreed to create. I think we agree that it creates your own kind of uniqueness and idiosyncrasy, if you will, about you, that right now if somebody finds you, it sounds like you're light years ahead of yourself in some respects.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really grateful for being such a young age and already having traveled so much and seeing so much of the world and experiencing so many different, you know, aspects of life, and that all comes with me whenever I'm writing with anybody else. But yeah, I think the goal as a collaborator, whenever it's someone else's feeling that they're trying to get out, is to almost be a chameleon in some sort of like therapist, psychiatrist in some sort of way, and just keep asking questions until they kind of say it themselves and not kind of inject your own voice. And I think some of the best songs I've written with other people have been from just talking to them and then them realizing that they just said what the song is all about, and then from there it just kind of writes itself in 5 minutes. And yeah, it's always fun to hear some of those looking back.
What have you got on the horizon, Sean? Tell my audience about what you've got planned over the next little while in terms of touring and songwriting.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I have some fun kind of things planned with these collaborators that I probably shouldn't mention too much right now, but yeah, some more kind of live shows in the future, and then always working on records with other people. And I know for my own self, I'm definitely going to start getting out there and performing a lot more this year. That's a big goal of mine. So yeah, I'm excited, and then just keep working on music that I get to release, and yeah, just make this year as busy and as creatively filled as I can.
Well, my friend, continued success with everything you do, and for the great scores and legions of fans you're making from people who admire not just your musical vision, not just your youthful enthusiasm, but all the Gandalf sagely wise wisdom that your music is teaching them to stay positive and stay focused in the moment.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate our conversation, and thanks for taking the time.
'Cause when I hold you, oh, nothing feels better in every moment. I want another, so I'll keep on chasing. 'Cause nothing feels better than you.